Welcome again. My name is Rob Love. I'm the president and owner of Love and Company. I'm really glad that you've taken the time to join us today. I think we're going to have an interesting conversation for you. First, let's just touch on a couple of basic logistics about our webinars. Um, Please, if you have questions, and you are welcome to pose a question at any time, although we will, in all likelihood, answer them all towards the end. But when you have a question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A dialog box. You see that at the bottom of the your control panel, or wherever the control panel might be on your screen. Just open that up and you can type in a question at any point. Please do not use the chat for that because we won't see your questions then. And of course, everyone's favorite question is, can I get a copy of this? We'll be sending out a copy of it. And again, for our regular viewers, you know this well, but in a couple of days, we will have a recording of the entire webinar complete, and we will send that out, a link to that, so that you can rewatch it, you can share it with co-workers, use it to get your boss to give you more money for marketing, you know, whatever it may be along the way there. It's yours to use and share as you can to help you get better results. That's why we're here. So with that, our game plan for today is we'll introduce our panelists in just a moment here. And we're going to talk about what really is integrated marketing today and a little bit of the evolution that senior living marketing has gone through over the last 20 years or so, and why it's important to think about all the tools we have available to us today in a different way. That's really the overall theme. Once we establish that, then we're going to walk through a couple of case studies. First, very broad, take a look at how we can apply these principles on a day in, day out basis to enhance the strength of our campaigns. Then we're going to look at a more specific example where there's a particular challenge or problem a community may be looking to solve, and how can you use the tools to really narrow in and focus on solving that challenge. So that's our game plan. I'd like our panelists to introduce themselves. Joe, if you would lead us off.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Ford. I'm Senior Vice President of Integrated Marketing Strategies here at Love and Company, and really excited to be here, about the webinar today. My mission at Love and Company is to make sure that our teams have the right tools in the toolbox and best operational practices to ensure that our clients have an integrated marketing approach and that we can execute on for them.
Great, thanks, Joe. Mike.
Hi there, I'm Michael Gwill. I'm the Director of Website and Interactive. My team handles online assets such as whole entire websites, but along with landing pages and strategic assets for marketing campaigns.
Thank you. Lexi.
Hi, I'm Lexi McDaniel. I am the content marketing strategist here at Love and Company, and I do anything from social media, emails, blogs, anything that falls under content.
And Ryan?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Nisley, and I'm a strategic sales advisor with Love and Company, which very simply put, if you need sales solutions or sales assistance, I'm your guy.
Great, thanks, Ryan. And thanks, everybody. As most of you out there in viewer land may realize, this team has put a lot of time and effort into bringing their skills and experience to the table to share with you all today. So I'd just like to, in advance, I'll do this at the end, thank Joe, Mike, Lexi, and Ryan for all the time that they've put into bringing this information to you. Again, I'm Rob Love. I'm the president and owner of Love and Company. I'm going to lead things off by giving away just how many of these gray hairs I have and have been earned over the years in senior living. Way back when Love and Company first got into marketing senior living, back in the 1990s, integrated marketing, there wasn't a whole lot to it. The workhorse of all of our marketing back then, it was direct mail. Direct mail. But very early in our experience in the field, we learned that if we would take the same campaign that we're running in direct mail and run it in print media as well, with ads running a little bit before the direct mail hit, about the same time, and again after the direct mail hit, we would boost the response rate from the direct mail alone by 20 to 30% by exposing our market to the message multiple times. Basic marketing and advertising principle of reach and frequency by improving that. And that 20 to 30% was separate from any leads that we would actually get from the print advertising itself. So that was integrated marketing in the old days. But as they say, the world changed a little bit since then. So we went from that integrated marketing of print and direct to suddenly in the mid-90s, this thing called the internet came along. And it was a fun place for people to go to watch cat videos and, all sorts of things like that. But then suddenly businesses found it, and we realized that, hey, people are out there looking for things. We need to have, our communities out there as well. So we began to build up a website presence and start doing some very basic search marketing. Then in the early 2000s, this thing called social media came along. Again, this fun thing for the younger kids and younger people to play with, right? Except Facebook, as it came along, very quickly transitioned to become something that the parents and grandparents used as much, if not more, than the kids were. It's like, okay, we need to be out there too. Eventually, over time, our newspapers started declining in readership and circulation because people were going online and getting the news online. And it's like, hey, we have this opportunity to be placing our ads online, not just be in search terms, but to actually have ads out there. So we're going to reduce our print advertising budget to cover the cost of some of these digital display ads. And then, lo and behold, all this time we have all these campaigns, things that are happening. You can go to our website. We always promoted the website, right? Well, somebody got this great idea that we can do a landing page, a mini website that we direct our people to there. And so instead of just having the website, we would create a landing page for our community. And kind of regardless of wherever somebody learned about us online, they click and go to this one more generic landing page. More and more people getting online, social media growing and growing, search engine algorithms as to how they find our websites, all that changed. And social media bloomed into content marketing, which is how do we get the right content out there so that people can find us when they're searching for a variety of things. Really augments the search engine marketing by having the right content. And last but not least, we have to start paying for these things in direct mail with all these other things. We start cutting that budget back. And then COVID hits. And our market suddenly becomes much more comfortable with streaming services. And we have the ability to start marketing, OTT, over the top, basically streaming on Amazon, on Hulu, on Netflix, on a variety of different streaming opportunities that we can do much more targeted advertising than you could if you just went on your local TV station that hits the whole market area. But kind of the point of all this, and the reason you see all these different colors is each time one of them came along, it's like, here's something new. What can we do with that? And let's do this with our social media. And let's do this with our digital display. And let's do this with our OTT. And let's do this with our content marketing. So, and this is where most companies actually are today. A lot of varied messages in different marketing channels out there. So where we've been starting to turn this last year, working with some of our clients, doing a little pilot, is where, it's really kind of going back to the basics of the old days. And that's, forgot this, but just sort of print has kind of shrunken and gone away almost entirely over this time. But now it's time to think about things a different way. Think about what is our campaign theme? What strategically are we trying to accomplish with our marketing? Is there a problem we're trying to solve? Let's create a campaign around that. And let's focus on how we can use direct mail to reach our audience, how we can supplement that with email, either to our lead base or to a purchase list. Let's take our digital display and run it again, focused on the same campaign theme, our OTT video. We're out there in the market. We have the same message being shared over and over. We are where our market is. We are where their eyes and ears are. And they're seeing us with their own social media. And now we don't have this generic landing page out there. We have a landing page that's custom tailored to this campaign. So now all of our marketing is working together in tandem, same message, same focus. We get that repetition, that reach and frequency that we had 25 years ago. And yes, search engine marketing is kind of still sitting out there. It's a little different animal. It doesn't quite fit in the mix, but it's still an important component of things. It's a different way of thinking how we build and structure the marketing programs in our community. This is what we're here to talk with you about today and to kind of bring this to life for you in some ways.
And Rob, one of the things we've had conversations with a lot of people over the last year, and I think that the assumption that a lot of people have when we start talking about integrated marketing is, well, tell me about the technology. Tell me about the channels that we use and everything. But if you look at Rob's slide, at the center of it all was the campaign theme, not technology. And that's a secret to making these campaigns work, is the power of that campaign theme, the power of the storytelling, and the shared vision that the team shares is really the driver. Everything else serves its purpose. So that's why when we start out at Love & Company, when we start out and sit down to do an integrated marketing campaign with our clients, it starts as a strategic process where we're looking at the data and we're looking at the prospects that we're trying to generate, the audience, and creating a shared vision. It's a shared vision of who this person is. How do we meet these people where they are in their journey? Where are their eyes and ears? Where do we need to appear? What's the story we need to tell? But we never lose sight of that campaign theme. And when we start out that way, that creates a shared understanding of both the data, but how we bring it to life with the audience. And that's core, because what that allows us to do as a team, and you see the team gathered here today, this is very similar to what we have when we work with a client, is you're able to tell the same story across channels. And we're going to see some examples of how that plays out. But that's really fundamentally what we're trying to accomplish. When all of us share that vision of who we're trying to talk to, where we're trying to talk to them, how we're talking to them, what is our campaign theme, then we're able to align our goals across sales, across marketing, across the teams. Even though each of those teams has its own goals that are specific to it, we can have a shared vision for how the strategy connects through that customer journey. And that's the value of bringing the diverse expertise you see in this room together. You have your content strategist, you have your media, you have your strategy team, your sales team, your digital team, all sharing the same data, talking about it, and working towards the same goals. What that creates is a lot of adaptability, because what happens in these campaigns is you learn more and more, and you adapt. You can test new creative, and ultimately that impacts the performance of your campaign. This is key to how we avoid silos in structuring our campaigns, because so many times you have really good teams. You have one team that's focused on branding campaigns and another that's focused on lead capture, and they might be doing really well individually. But are those efforts connected? Are we bringing in the best audience at the top of the funnel, the ones that ultimately are going to call our community home at the end of the day? They connect with it. So this isn't just about optimizing any one particular channel or any one particular technology. This is about connecting the pieces through the funnel so that we're optimizing the audience, optimizing our approach, and ultimately delivering better leads to our sales teams and through our marketing efforts. So very key that we don't silo it, because in the grand scheme of things, the senior living prospect journey has changed a lot in 5 years, and to them, they want to see one company, not 5 different stories. And what's changed in the last 5, even 6 years has been that the senior living journey has become one of self-education. You know, our prospects, as you know, they're doing a lot more research up front. They're looking at reviews, they're looking at web pages, they're doing their own analysis. They want to see resident testimonials. They're checking out social media just to see, does this community fit the lifestyle of a place that I could call home? And whereas before you were able to present your brand and everything about it, when they talked with a sales counselor, much of that work has been done up front, and they've done it. So how do we, through that journey, through all those different channels, maintain a similar view, a similar brand promise, similar personality, so that each time they touch it, they feel like they're talking to one community, you know, with a similar voice? That's why integrated marketing is so important today. It's not about us. It's about portraying a unified brand vision to our consumers through the journey. And to get back to what Rob said, why? Because we can deliver the same message with consistency over time, again and again. And as they get that unified brand experience and they're getting increased frequency of message and just understanding the personality of your community, you're going to see higher conversion rates, because for the consumer, the potential resident, they're getting increased trust and emotional connection with the brand because they know what to expect each time they see you.
All right, thanks, Joe. So, okay, next we're going to move into a couple of not exactly case studies, but sort of scenario walkthroughs, so you can get a better idea of how we can really apply these tools and this philosophy. The first one is really a very broad one, just overall how this integration can improve the lead quantity and quality. And the second one will focus on a particular challenge that many communities today face. So we'll start with this one, lead quantity and quality. And the scenario we hear from a lot of communities today is, you know, over time, direct mail response rates, they've just been kind of getting lower. And in particular, over this last year or two, the leads that have come from search and other online marketing, you know, Google keeps changing the algorithm, keep changing all sorts of things, and the quality and quantity of our online leads is really decreasing. So what do I do? You know, what's the best way to think about improving overall results of the community?
You're right, Rob. And, you know, to go with what Rob was saying, when you talk to the sales offices from across the country, you can almost set your watch to it that there's not a single sales office out there that will say, I have too many leads. In fact, if anything, the good news is with this interactive marketing and more digital, leads are up. But overall, most sales offices will tell you the quality's down, unfortunately. You know, when we think about the way we advertise today, really trying to battle that mantra of what senior living is looked at as the place more around care and taking care of you, as opposed to the resort style living we're advertising. The bad news is when we advertise this resort style living is that what we're running into is the market can get confused. We're having, you know, 35-year-olds inquire to the community asking those questions. Is this a place for me when it isn't? So that, you know, some of our ads are confusing the marketplace. At the end of the day, sales teams, they all just want the golden goose. They want a lot of leads and they want them all to be quality. right? And they never feel like they have enough. When we put in parentheses there, so you think, because as we talk today, we're going to talk about how the CRM really is a treasure chest of potential sales that most sales teams are still underutilizing as far as being able to dig and try to find those opportunities. At the end of the day, sales utopia really is they want to spend less time marketing and more time closing. So when you take a step back to say, okay, how do we go about this? You'll see the chart on the screen here is what we call a resident demographic analysis. And as you look at those numbers, we can gain a lot of insight from this. This is an example of something that Love & Company provides on some of our market intelligence side of things. And you'll see here, as you can see from this particular chart, it's showing the ages, the median incomes, the net worth. And you can see just one quick example should be no surprise to anybody that in this particular example that we used is 1 bedroom skew older with age and less overall net worth, as opposed, of course, to our 2 bedrooms, which are usually a larger net worth and a younger, not only a younger prospect, but usually a couple. But while we're looking at the data, we also don't want to ignore the human side of this. And that human side, I say, is a 3-pronged area, which is where you're going to be getting the sales team perspective, the boots on the ground to say, what does our current resident look like? And what do we want it to look like in the future? The same, different, and how do we go about that? Turning to your marketing team to get that real-time data to see, okay, who is inquiring? What does that ideal customer profile look like, which Lexi's going to be talking about a little bit later. And then last, but certainly not least, and some would argue some of the most important, but many times overlooked, is talking with your residents, having focus groups, especially when we talk about 1 bedrooms later on, who is living in these units, and specifically, why are their neighbors wanting to move in or maybe not wanting to move in?
Ryan led me right into this, so thank you for that. So the ideal customer profile you may have heard of before as a persona. This is a deeper dive into what and who you want to attract into your community, and not just who you currently serve, but also those that you want to serve in the future or as you look ahead. The goal is to look beyond the demographics that you are currently seeing and think about who will be considering senior living in the years to come. Ideal customer profiles should be built on data, like Ryan was saying, which are profiles based on anticipated trends and lifestyle preferences that are emerging in the target audience. Building these profiles really helps to understand the traits that indicate somebody who might be ready to move in right now or move in sometime in the future.
And as Lexi was just talking about when you look at an ideal customer profile example, what the example we gave here specific to a veteran, this might be something that you would see kind of across the board right now, especially in a life plan or CCRC environment, is we're looking at a target age somewhere in the mid 70s to early 80s, assets north of $1 million, active within the community. And when we mean active within the community, we're looking for fitting that community, is the bullet point says, that community specific culture. So in this example, we're saying it's pretty black and white of the community specific culture we're trying to attract is the veteran. And in other communities, it may be you're a golf community or you lean more towards the arts or something else. And then we list couple because I think especially from a sales side and just an occupancy side, we love to attract the couples because then when a vacancy comes up, many times one of them is still there to occupy the unit.
Yeah, and that ideal customer profile factors into everything that we do from a targeting perspective. So when we here at Love & Company sit down and figure out how to connect the pieces, I don't want to bury the lead in this. The lead is, how do we take the mail list, which often embodies the ideal customer profile, and how do we deliver those impressions to that mail list and build that audience across our channels, across OTT, video, and display, and email, all the other channels. The key is making the connection between that ideal customer profile and the targeting that we do. And one of the other ways that we do that, I'm going to talk about 2 other strategies that we do here when we set up an integrated campaign. One of them is lookalike modeling. So a lot of the factors that are built into the ideal customer profile, we're going to take that to enlarge the audience set. So we can bring a bigger funnel of potential candidates into the funnel. And you can you model that on a lot of different factors, all of the factors that, including net worth or home value and lifestyle factors, what they like to do, things like that. So lookalike modeling allows us to get outside of one or two channels and retarget the same audience over more channels. But there's another really powerful technology that we use called website visitor or caller ID. And what that does is it allows us to find out who's actually coming to our website. You've probably seen this. You know that 96% of the people that come to a website, only 4% of them are going to complete a form. So who are the other 96% of visitors that came to the website, raised their hand and said, I'm interested in learning more? So can we segment that population so that we understand, hey, these people are interested in 1-unit apartments and these individuals are career oriented? Can we segment them so that we're not talking to them all at the same time in the same way? We want to make sure that we give them messages that are consistent with the audience. So those are two big strategies, and we can enrich that data with third-party data so it helps us tell us more about who these people are. And then we rinse and repeat through the process so that we keep refining our target, enlarging our audience through lookalike modeling and so forth. And that allows us to give a really targeted message to the right audience that reflects the overall brand strategy, including the brand personality, all of the branding that we do to ensure that there's consistency. And it helps us speak right to an individual's most important need. That all flows out of the ideal customer profile, including the call to action, which is based on what we know, what we can hear from the sales team and others about what's important to this potential resident in making this really important decision.
So I think it's really important to build on and that first bullet that Joe touched on. If the right message needs to reflect your overall brand strategy. So this message can be different for every community. And in fact, should be different for every community. There should be no one size fits all. And just to share some examples of this, Carlisle Place is a client of ours in Macon, Georgia. They are the only life plan community, the only entrance fee community, not only in Macon, but in all of central Georgia. And so it's a product that a lot of the market doesn't really understand. So for them, an educational approach, Senior Living 101, get the inside scoop from the residents, those who know us best. That's been a very powerful message for them. Another example, Trinity Landing was a client of ours in Wilmington, North Carolina, the only community in Wilmington with a waterfront location on the Intracoastal Waterway. And so very distinct positioning, campaign theme to everything that they did focused on that coastal living. That was hugely effective as well. St. James Place, another client, this one in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, very close relationship with the Louisiana State University. A lot of the residents have close ties there. And I don't want to call it an intellectual community. That doesn't always come across as the right connotation, but it's a very engaged community, very thoughtful community. And what's really helped bring their community's personality to life in their marketing is a series of speakers on a variety of different topics. But you can see even one, a legend holds court. Like Dale Brown is the coach of the LSU basketball team and a very likely nominee and entry into the College Basketball Hall of Fame someday. Very powerful draws. These events always sell out for St. James, and they always wind up with a significant waiting list. Then we have Westerwood, another great client in the Columbus, Ohio area. And their personality shines through in their marketing materials and campaigns in a very different way than the others we've seen. It's a lot more fun, high spirited. Let's have fun Say aloha to fun, join the party, courtyard cookout, celebrate Oktoberfest. So you see all the different looks and feels to the campaigns. It's very unique based on that personality of each community. Now we'll come back and Joe will focus a little bit more on St. James.
Yeah, and Rob, just to go back to the example you just showed, one of the things I love about that example and those types of events and the pieces that were put together is they're great examples of putting story at the center. The campaign theme, the story at the center. And even though those events are different from one another, you still get the sense of the personality of the community, and it's consistent across those events. So it's not surprising. It builds a connection with our prospects. And so that's a great example of how to do this kind of storytelling and to be free, in some senses, free to tell the story, but to keep your personality consistent. This is a great example of a TV spot that our community St. James Place did. And you want to go ahead and play that?
We're never
Rob?
bored.
You can be busy every day.
All day.
We do a lot of stuff outside.
We go out and shop. They have great parties, actually, wonderful parties.
And I have a lot of fun.
You don't have to be wealthy to move in.
This is our house. This is our community.
It's a family kind of a feeling.
You'll have to come see it. It's great.
Take a look at St. James Place. More fun, more connection, and it might be more affordable than you think.
We're never bored.
You can.
All right, come on, you can go forward.
We're never bored.
There we go.
I love it. Well, we'll bring back those quotes in a minute too. So it's I think this is a great example, Rob, because the video is really an anchor for the campaign. It's a TV spot, but then what you see through the channels is how you can cut those experiences, cut and edit those experiences into other channels and create a lot more content. So you see YouTube, and you might have social, Facebook, and the engagement is significant. When you look at some of the numbers, I know it's small, but down on the bottom right, you can see there's 553 views for the first video, 345, 293 views. People actually going out and looking and engaging and watching these videos. So as you repurpose this content, that helps you give your story more life, allows them to get snippets of the campaign where they are. You can see how this plays out. It doesn't just stop with the video clips. It also plays out in the display ads and other online creative that you use, both on mobile and on desktop. And one thing that I really want to call out here, again, it's a little small, but if you remember from the video, we're using a lot of the same language from the video in the display ad, because the best thing that you can do is take some of the voice of your residents and customers and amplify that, because it's in their own words, and it's what potential residents want to hear. So you can see that there's a consistency in branding, but also there's a consistency in messaging that starts with the voice of the customer.
And that's a great example, Joe. There's another one we want to share. In this case, this is John Knox Village of Central Florida that wanted to run a campaign focused on veterans, as Lexi talked about a little bit earlier in the ideal customer profile section. So here you see a variety of ads that were run in various digital media, and that's it.
Yeah, content marketing comes in here by carrying that message through. For example, you could create a video with a testimonial from a resident that's a veteran. The video will then be shared on social media and boosted and retargeted to people that had interacted with the video. A blog would be created about the testimonial with the actual video and the blog, and a segmented email could be created as well. All of these things would tie back to the digital ads that Rob just showed, and everything would point to a landing page, which is what Mike is going to talk more about.
Now let's look at the key element of an effective campaign, which is the landing page. Getting this part right can make a huge difference because this is the primary digital asset that will convert unknown prospects into known prospects. The idea here is to have a single cohesive web page that captures leads from all the different marketing channels, whether that's social media or display ads, email campaigns, etc. This page should have consistent branding, messaging, and a clear call to action. Why is this so important? Well, it creates a seamless user experience. Instead of sending people to a hodgepodge of different pages, you're funneling them all to this one destination, which makes it easier to track where your leads are coming from, and then you can optimize your campaigns. Which brings me to the next point, which is effectively tracking campaign performance. I know analytics can be a bit of a headache, but it's essential. The key metrics to monitor here are lead source, conversion rate by channel, and cost per acquisition. This allows you to see which digital tactics, whether it's social, display, email, or something else, are driving the highest quality leads and delivering the best return. Armed with this data, you can double down on what's working, you can cut out what isn't, and you can fine-tune your strategy for maximum impact. It's all about making informed, data-driven decisions. So in summary, if you nail the landing page and then track and adjust the sales, this sets you up for marketing success.
Yep. And Mike, one of the things that I think is really important when you set out and do the campaign brief, and when we sit down and do this with clients, it really sets the stage for creating a culture of continuous learning and optimization throughout the campaign. Really key. It all starts back at the campaign brief when we actually set the key objectives that the campaign's trying to achieve. And a tracking plan without the objectives, you're never sure if you're measuring the right thing. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we are measuring the right thing. That keeps our team aligned, all the way through the funnel and through the customer journey. And it also gives us ideas about testing, whether it's testing colors or strategy or channels. We look at it and we let the data decide as a team. So it's not a lot, it's a discussion. It's always a discussion based on the data. And over time, we're learning and optimizing. And what that looks like is that over time, we're sending better signals back to Google and to our ad platforms. So what does that do? Why do we do that? When we're ranking those leads and sending better signals back to Google or to the ad platform and saying, we want more of these leads, we get better quality leads and we eliminate some of the poorer quality leads early on in the funnel. And we document that learning. That's all part of the, creating a culture of this continuous improvement and rinse and repeat. Again, going through the process, looking at the campaign regularly, making adaptations and learning as we go.
Right, so that's an overview of the whole process from a very broad perspective, as you might think about most campaigns, how to shift into going from all these separate messages out there into a more unified approach to campaigns. Next, we're going to walk through a little bit more of a specific example of, so how can you use the same tools, the same philosophy, but to drill down on a more specific challenge that you might be facing as a community. And certainly one of the things that we hear pretty regularly from clients is, hey, most of my inventory, it's selling really well. Our census is really good, but I've got all these one bedrooms sitting out there. And so what do I do with that? Particularly older communities. It's not that unusual for us to come up and meet with a community that maybe as much of a quarter of their residences are just plain one bedroom, one bath. They don't have dens. They don't have a second half bath. They may be small. They may be 650, 680 square feet. And we just say, hey, everywhere else in the community, we're at 93%, but I'm sitting at 65% on this. What do we do? How do we market this? Now, we will talk in just a moment about things we can do using all these principles to market this. But I would be remiss, and some of you have heard me say this before, I would be totally remiss if I didn't say, if you look like this scenario, The first thing you need to do is maximize your opportunities to combine or open up, because this is not a problem that can just be solved through marketing. Take those one bedrooms, take two 650 square foot one bedrooms, connect them, turn them into 1,300 square foot. That's an ideal residence size. That's really the sweet spot we see with a lot of communities today. And then if you can't combine them, open them up. Get rid of those galley kitchens. It can create, make the whole space feel so much larger to have them be, the open great room concept. I know a lot of communities are doing that today, but those are just fundamentals. We need to minimize the problem with this inventory and get rid of them as many positive ways as we can. But you're still going to wind up with some. They're still going to be in places you can't combine them or can't do things. So how do we go about marketing those that are left?
You're right, Rob. All great points. And I'll tell you, from the sales team, we always say control the controllables. You know, what can we do on our end to really dig down on these one bedrooms? And it certainly is an issue. It seems to be one of the top 2 or 3 issues right now in senior living, as far as how do we fill these smaller units. Well, going back to a lot of what we've already spoke about today is, first off, asking the question, you know, what do we know about this buyer? Who wants the one bedroom unit? You know, the easy answer is to say it usually 9 times out of 10, it's going to attract older, just as our graph showed earlier in the presentation. It's usually going to attract singles, but I will also say, be careful not to rule out couples, especially if you're in an urban area, if you're in a, you know, downtown city, high rise area, you can attract couples because many are used to living in a smaller unit. Even in the cases where you can attract couples, I would definitely say we want to be able to look at this idea of different strategies, which I'll address on the next screen, as far as kind of moving in the move up and just being able to reserve something while you're waiting for something larger. You know, you want to ask these questions about data mining your CRM, because there's a lot of great information in there. I would even say pulling reports about people who have taken multiple tours that are specifically singles, or maybe, again, couples that might be willing to invest now with a move up later. Some examples of these events are, one of the more popular ones that we see a lot of success with is going with the phrase of live small to live big, meaning the lifestyle. You're going to be selling the lifestyle, the real secret to living your best life at a life plan community. And in doing that, we want to showcase the residents that are doing it. So in an ideal situation, and not all of you may have these situations, but I'm sure most of you at least have some residents that are living in these smaller units. Have them give a testimonial, have them in a panel event where, you know, they can get rapid fire questions from the audience as to, you know, what was it like moving from a 4,000 square foot house into a, you know, 800 square foot apartment. How were you able to do it? And even more ideally, you'll have at least one very nice residence that you can actually take people in and showcase either during an event or have lined up for a tour. And just to wrap up, as I talked about earlier, this whole move in to move up, we're hearing that a lot. There's a particular community we're working with in Sarasota that does something called the Early Advantage, where they're bringing people in while they wait, and they're making monthly service payments while they're waiting for something larger to come up. So the key word here is flexibility and creativity. And again, it all has to talk to one another, which is why we want to make sure we have a continuous message, right, Joe?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's creating that relevancy specific to a single bedroom is really key. And so you can think outside the box with your direct mail pieces to give them opportunities to engage with you and to engage with content that's going to help illustrate what that lifestyle might look like. And frankly, the more ways you give to connect with you, the better it is. So are you using QR codes, informed delivery, which is the ride along image that you can get from USPS online? Are you using phone numbers, URL? And is this the right message for the audience? So are we talking specifically to an audience that would be interested in single bedrooms? And one of the really key ways to build on that list and add to your audience is to use that website visitor ID technology that I was talking about earlier. And if you have content on your website that has information about these single bedrooms. You can look for the visitors that looked at that content and segment them and include them in your next direct mail piece about the single bedroom units. So again, building your audience based on who's actually coming and showing interest. And that's what we call that retargeting. That's part of our secret sauce, retargeting potential residents offline. We always talk about it online, but you can also retarget offline. It's actually more, in some ways, more effective. As Ryan mentioned earlier, the single bedroom audience might be showing up in your third party data as information. Maybe they are currently, some of the visitors to your website or on your mail list, maybe they're currently condo owners or urban targets. And maybe originally you would have taken them out, but now reconsider that audience in building a funnel, building a bigger audience that's relevant, interested in the single bedroom units.
So Joe, I just want to add a quick note here about informed delivery. In case there are those of you out there in listener land that are not familiar with that, just Google, how do I sign up for informed delivery? And I would encourage you to sign up for it. You will get a daily email from the post office. It will include a scan of every piece of mail you're going to get each day. And the cool part about it is you see the sample on the right. For those marketers who are using and taking advantage of this technology, you don't just get a black and white scan of what's coming in the mail. You actually get a digital image that you can click on, interact with, forward to a friend. It's a pretty cool thing. And we actually wound up having a meeting with someone the other day related to informed delivery and asked, so is our audience actually really using this? And I guess this wasn't really all that surprising, since we know that our audience is the one that historically has paid more attention to mail than any others. But the biggest users of informed delivery are the 55 up market. Now we're pressing them to figure out about the 70 up market, as we always do. But just thought that'd be interesting for some of you out there to go sign up and experience that if you're not already.
To build on what we were just saying about the relevancy, I just want to highlight for a couple minutes, a couple examples of the storytelling that we see some of our communities doing and how they use video to tell this story about the single bedroom units. This is Princeton Windrows out of New Jersey, and they really use video very effectively to be able to tell this story online. You can also use it to highlight resident testimonials and experiences, and you can retarget video viewers and provide insider experiences for residents who are currently in the single bedroom units to connect with them so they learn more firsthand. But Rob, let's take a look just at what this video looks like, just to showcase how you can highlight some of the advantages of single bedroom living.
We were ready for a new adventure and intrigued by the possibilities we saw in Princeton Windrows. We fell in love with the sweet compact studio with floor-to-ceiling windows and transformed it into a home that is functional, flexible, and says, "This is who we are."
Thanks, Rob. I think Lexi's going to follow up and talk about how this can play into some of your content marketing.
Yeah. For this example, we used Ramona's story and how she downsized when moving into senior living. And we created a blog about what she experienced and how she went from, like Ryan said earlier, a much bigger living space to a 1-bedroom, and how it's brought so much more joy to her than she expected. We shared the blog on the website and then shared it onto social media and boosted it. We then created a targeted email about the blog. You can really use storytelling to showcase the outcome and to help fill in those gaps. In this case, content marketing helps to bring the story full circle. And like Joe continues to drive home, keeping the story at the center.
So the landing page has one job, which is speaking to and converting the ideal customer profile. We do this by strategically incorporating key elements. First, your landing page has to match the campaign message. Whatever the ad promises, the landing page should deliver on that promise with no surprises. What makes you stand out? Why should someone choose you? This should be front and center on the page. Pair that with a compelling call to action that makes the next step super clear. And don't forget to highlight key benefits. Think about what matters most to your audience. You can even build more trust with social proof like video testimonials or online reviews. The lead capture form allows you to convert unknown visitors into known prospects so you can continue the conversation. Now, the rest of this is, mostly we consider a given, things like scannable content using high quality images or videos and a simple design. We don't want to confuse users who land on this page as part of the campaign. These elements are not just design choices, they're intentional strategies. When you bring them together, you create landing pages that work seamlessly as part of your integrated digital marketing efforts. To discuss tracking a little further, demographics might be relevant here depending on the campaign. Are we targeting specific regions or cities? The metrics to track exactly will depend on which channels we're using, and understanding patterns will help us refine our approach. The goal isn't just to get a higher number of form fills, it's to find the right people who truly value the offer.
And when we talk about, go ahead, Rob, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to do a quick transition here, Ryan. My apologies, but so far we've talked all about the pre-marketing and coordinating everything in advance, but it's just as important to success to think about. So, what do we do after the event?
And Rob led me into it perfectly. There is that when we talk about post-event strategy, there are three main audiences that we need to follow up with. The simple ones are those who attended and those who RSVP'd, but for whatever reason did not attend the actual event. And then last but not least, those that were invited, who made our mailing list, who never RSVP'd.
This is a great opportunity to share excitement about an upcoming event that you have or your next event and get people excited to sign up now. You could post a recording on YouTube if it was an event that you had the ability to record. You can also send a post survey to the attendees that did attend and capture that feedback to grow on. And then lastly, any of the videos or images that you captured during that event, share them on social and get people excited.
And Lexi, just to build on that with the video, I think that that gives you a great opportunity. Your audience building for the next event really starts with your current event, right? Fair to say?
Yes.
And I think that the post-event survey can also serve a really valuable tool for segmenting what your users and what your residents are interested in for the future, so that you can, again, learn, create more relevancy for future communications.
All right. So that kind of runs us through a couple of examples before we shift into the questions part. And again, feel free to enter your questions in at any time. We'll get to them in just a moment. But I'd like to ask each of our panelists, to share one takeaway that, of everything we've talked about today. And what did each of you think the most important thing from your perspective is that you'd like our participants to take away with them today? Ryan, could you lead us off?
Sure. As far as sales goes, remember this, it's not about having the right opportunities. It's about handling the opportunities right.
Okay, cool. Mike.
Smart senior marketing isn't about casting a wider net. It's about casting the right net into the right pond. You want your campaign to make your community perfect for the right person.
Thanks. Lexi.
Yeah, stay consistent and strong in your messaging and keep it the same through any platform you're sharing.
All right, and Joe.
I would say that it's not just about the channels or the technology. Keep the story at the center.
All right. So again, I'd like to thank our panelists for the time they've taken to help pull all this together today and share it with you. We would love to hear your questions and start to respond to things. We have a couple coming in already. We'll start there. And again, feel free to ask a question at any point, or feel free to reach out to one of us if there's something you'd like to explore more one-on-one. So first question, we are looking at a filtered geofencing process for push notifications to a certain demographic and a certain radius around the community. This would be for both staff recruiting and resident lead generation. Can you give some insight of your experience with this approach and if it is effective for either or both audiences? Anyone want to take a first shot at that?
Well, let me take a first shot at it, and you guys feel free to weigh in as well. Geofencing can be a great strategy, especially since so many of the potential employees as well as the residents come from a fairly tight geo. So we've had good experiences with geofencing, especially on our display and on using OTT. Especially if we're able to target at the household level, so that we know we're getting a little more share voice in particular households. So I find geofencing, I think it's a very important strategy to keep in the mix.
I'll piggyback on that from the employer, staff recruiting perspective. Dana Piles heads up that line of service for us of talent acquisition services. And I do know that geofencing is a tactic that for the digital marketing of staff is definitely something that she believes in. Any other thoughts on geofencing? Okay, next question. How often should you turn a new campaign around, and how can you reuse them? For content creation, where do you see the value in Facebook ads? What about for events? So kind of two different questions there. I'm going to go back here in the first one, because I was actually kind of anticipating this question a little bit. I want to show some of the things we talked about for St. James Place and those ads and how things were reused there. This is like the online story, and you certainly can, in one perspective. Every month, if you were to do an event at your community, you could create an entirely new campaign, and run it across our channels. It would be a little expensive. So another way to think about it is to maybe you're going to have a quarterly campaign theme, and you have your digital media and content marketing all out there reinforcing that theme, new fresh messages over the course of a quarter. But you have a couple different events that direct mail that tie into and reflect, on that overall theme. So that you have that consistent presence out there, and you're gaining that reach and frequency of the overall messaging over a longer period of time. So there's no one critical right answer. Like you have to do it every month, you have to do it every 2 months, you have to do it every quarter. It's really going to depend on the individual community and your particular needs and goals and challenges, and how many of those there may be. But that's one way to think about that. Anybody else want to add anything else to that?
I think that refreshing the creative, again, there's no hard and fast rule, but when you do refresh the creative, you typically do see a jump in interest for a period of time. And so when you're creating your assets, your digital assets and display assets, you might want to keep some in reserve that you can use to refresh and through the life of that campaign, whether it's a 30-day or 60 or 90-day campaign.
All right, let's turn to the second part of the question. where do you see the value in Facebook ads today? What about for events? And I know that a couple of years back, given some restrictions that Facebook had on who you couldn't target based on fair housing kind of things, we shifted away from it for a while. But I also now we're shifting back in, but in a certain kind of limited way. Lexi or Joe, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely think that you can use it around Facebook or your events. I think that's where it'd be most helpful for Facebook ads. There's a few different ways you could do it. You could direct people back to your events page and encourage RSVPs. Joe, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, one of the things Lexi had mentioned earlier in the presentation was around video too, and using the video from your current event. One of the things that you can do on Facebook is you can retarget people based on their engagement with the video on Meta. And so that can be another way to build your audience. And again, it brings you back to how do you use content from the events themselves and to engage a new audience. And a lot of times those organic posts, the videos and social posts from your events are one of the more popular types of posts. So you can also boost those posts as they get interest. So a lot of different ways you can use, and promote that video content.
All right. Another question. May I ask what a preferred platform for something like programmatic advertising may be? I utilize AdRoll and then please, are there others that are your go-tos?
There's a lot of different platforms out there. And there are just, and through testing, you might find that there are differences in how their network, how strong their network is for delivering one type of an ad over another, like native versus display, or what capabilities they have for addressable targeting, or what household targeting to take over. So it really should be a conversation. There are certainly ones that you can look at, like StackAdapt and others. But we look at it carefully and might use a combination of different networks to achieve our clients' objectives. So depends on the objectives we set out early on.
Yeah, and I think actually, Joe, correct me on this because you're a lot closer to this than I am, but we actually work with a company, partner company that has extensive access to a variety of different platforms to be able to utilize.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily a specific one as much as there might be, a partner firm that can give you broader access. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. You want to be able to have access across email, across ad networks, and so that you can coordinate your targeting and get the kind of reach and frequency that you're talking about, but consistently against the same target. So yes, there are platforms that incorporate a lot more functionality.
All right. Is there still value in print media and direct mail? Again, I'll start this one and then open up for others, but absolutely. You saw a lot of direct mail in all the samples and things that we showed here today. And it's often a cornerstone of particularly event-driven campaigns. What we're really saying is we can increase the performance of the direct mail by exposing our message, our campaign theme to people in many more ways so that they're seeing it when they're online. They see something in their email, they see it in their Facebook feed, they see it when they open the newspaper, whether it's online or some people still do actually get the hard copy paper. So yes, there's a role for this. You saw the print ads that we were doing for St. James in here as well. So there's definitely a role. What we're trying to say is there's a way to take what we're doing with direct mail and print and expand it to integrate other channels as well and get a much stronger overall response than if we were to just use direct mail alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Rob, if I could just add to that, you know, print media, you hear a lot with print media about the idea of just for general branding, which there is some truth to that. But with that said, you know, going back to when Lexi was talking about community culture and identifying a culture, don't ignore the value of some of your, you know, more active clubs on campus. I'll give one quick example. One of the communities I first worked with had a very, very active model railroad club. And we advertised in a model railroader magazine. And that community, which was based in the Mid-Atlantic, started to get leads from all over the country. And I remember specifically during a closing, a gentleman passed the ad over the table at closing saying, "This is the reason I'm here." So yeah, certainly do not overlook that value to what Rob was saying, and get creative.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Next question. I recently saw a statistic that people identify themselves as something like 10 years younger than images that they see, meaning when most people look at images on a senior living website, they think that's not me, and the images aren't resonating. What's your experience with this? I try to use only authentic images, no stock photos, but could I be losing potential clients with this strategy? This is a great question. This is one that's been around for all 25 years that I've been working, actually 30 years now, in the senior living field. Yes, people see themselves as 10 to 15 years younger than others see them. We see, when we look in the mirror, we see in many ways the person we've known for our whole life, more than just, you know, a snapshot of, you know, what the mirror reflects. So we have our images of who we are in our head. And yes, a lot of, you know, how many times do we hear the story of the 95-year-old walking through the community, you know, with a cane and looking around at everybody and saying, I don't want to live here. These people are too old. They're so much older than I am. You know, that's been the story of our field forever. So yes, people do look at themselves that way. Now, what do we do in images? A couple of things. And this varies a lot by community. There are two of the communities that we specifically referenced today, Carlisle Place and St. James Place. We did photo shoots of them over the last couple of years, and each really focused on their residents for, you know, to make it the majority of the people in the images. You know, we may have had to supplement a little bit for fair housing types of things, but they really got the residents engaged in it. The residents loved being part of it. Now, you kind of have to be a little careful who you choose for that. But the residents felt ownership, that they were contributing to the community. And that was all positive. There are other communities, though, that have had too many times, you know, they just did the photo shoot, they printed their new materials, the resident passed away, and then they have to go replace everything. Well, part of that is what you do in your photo release form, and how you communicate to people when you do all the photo shoots. But the other thing that we often do is, you know, we use stock as much as anybody else to capture certain feelings or certain types of things. But when we do a photo shoot, we often use models. So we are bringing in those people that do look 10, maybe 10, 15 years younger than the typical prospect might look, so that it does line up with how people see themselves when they're looking at marketing materials. So, but by using models, we're able to show the real community. And that's something you just can't do with stock. You know, the stock images, don't get me started on that. There's a limit to the reality that is ever portrayed in stock photos. But you can make it real in your community with models. Sorry if I went off on that one a little too long, but that's that. The next one is also going to hit a little bit of a personal nerve, if you will. And that's how best to market the continuing care continuum of life plan communities without sending a negative message about aging and infirmity. So, how long do we have? No, I'm kind of kidding there, but not entirely. This is a major challenge for our field today. We need to change how we think of ourselves and what our offering is. I was at the Ziegler conference a few months ago, a number of leading age sessions at leading age. A lot of things that we talk about when we do board education sessions is, what do our communities need to be to thrive into the future? And we can't be places that people move into because and only because they think, well, I'm going to need care someday, so I want to be someplace where I can get that. No, we want to be communities where people can thrive. We want to be places where people move to, I hate the terminology, it's cliche-ish, but live their best life, to truly do that. You know, to be able to explore their passions, to utilize everything that we offer from, you know, the basic services of housekeeping and meals, and take that time and truly pursue your passions. Write the novel, write your, oh, I'm missing the word for it, your musical score, not manifesto, but, well, sorry, I'm missing that word. Somebody else thinks of it, feel free to chime in there. But where does your passion lie? Is it in volunteering? Is it being part of the community? Do you want to move in? Our communities can be basically, they have everything they need to be mini blue zones. And if you're not familiar with blue zones, look that up. It's places in the world where people are 3 times as likely to live to the age of 100 as they are other places. They don't just live that long. They live active, engaged lives past the age of 100. We have the ability to be communities where people move to thrive. Yes, we have that safety net for those that might need it. That's not the driver for our marketing. That's not the driver for who we need to be and what our value proposition needs to be. With the cost of our entrance fees today and our monthly fees, we really need to look at our value position and position ourselves as a place to really get the absolute most out of life you can. And yes, you know that safety net is behind you, but that can't be the major focus. So again, sorry to have that, touch a nerve a little bit there. But I really think that's important, and I'm not alone by any stretch of the imagination in how our communities need to be reinventing themselves for the future. All right. Not sure if I'm allowed to do this, but I will anyway. Matt Thornhill, hey, nice to see you. Really glad you joined us today. Known Matt for a long time, another thought leader in the field. So for brand new, doing some really interesting things. So if you want to go out on LinkedIn and find Matt Thornhill, you'll get in contact with a number of interesting things. Anyway, Matt asks, for brand new community, what are the expectations for the number of touches required to move a prospect through the journey to become a resident? Let's say active adult or independent living, for example. That number, and it can vary, obviously, like anything else, by community and by situation and so forth. And Brian, I'm going to come to you in a second on this. But I know for years we've talked about that being 30 plus touches. If you look at all facets of touches, and that's from the initial inquiry to event attendance, to emails, to texts, to phone conversations, to the family comes in for a tour, to all those different things. There's a lot that goes into the decision. And I'm going to go to Matt's second part of the question, Ryan, before I come over to you. And how long in time does it typically take? This is a little more interesting to answer because we still see an average, and averages can be misleading from a mathematical perspective. We still see an average that's between 1 to 2 years. But you have a whole bunch of people that move in 6 months or less, and that tends to be more need driven. Then you have the people that are 5 years or more because they start exploring, they're planners, they're thinking ahead. but it takes a while to get to the point of moving. So Ryan, give you a chance to add on.
Sure. Yeah, and I see Matt even added just a very quick follow-up. It says, do prospects buy the offering or is it sold? That is a great that is a great question. It's kind of like a psychological question. I'll actually start there. My strong opinion on that is it's both. It's really both. You need a skilled salesperson or team. And I kind of compare it to like if you've ever played bumper bowling, right? So that if you picture the bowling ball is your prospect and you as the salesperson, ultimately you're the bumpers. You're the person who is guiding that ball down the lane to ultimately getting the strike, which is the deposit and the move in, right? So I've always been trained in sales, or I've trained people in sales to say, ideally you want the prospect to feel like they're in control, but ultimately you're asking the right questions to guide them to the next steps and always keep those steps moving. Now, as far as going back to the question, I agree with Rob, a year to 2 years, I've usually lived by the mantra kind of right in between that 18 to 21 months. Now, one thing, Matt, I know Matt's specific question was a brand new community, and that does bring in a couple of different varying factors. So I guess it depends on how you define brand new. If the community is officially open and operational, I still agree with everything that what Rob and I have already said as far as timeline. With that said, if you are in the throes of an expansion, depending on where you're at in that expansion, I mean that could obviously elongate that by leaps and bounds. Your average expansion or brand new project is going to be about a 5 to 6 year project. So in that case, obviously touches and things of that nature are going to go up exponentially. But if it's a brand new community that the doors are open and you have a physical facility to show them, a physical community to actually walk them around, then yeah, it's going to be anywhere from a year and a half to 2 years. And I'll also say that one of the best questions, I'll kind of end with this, and Rob, feel free to put a bow on it if you want to, but I think the number one question going at how long does it take really starts with the initial discovery. And if you're asking the right questions, it's the initial discovery to find out where your buyer is in their journey, right? So if they're, like Rob said, if they're 6 months or less, that's what I like to say, you're in the action stage. It's somebody who has made that determination that they know they need a community like yours. Now the question is which one, which is the best fit, as opposed to somebody who has really just started and maybe they're still thinking, do I stay in my home? Do I downsize my home? Do I bring in outside healthcare? Or do I move to your community? That's going to take a lot more touches and a lot more nurturing and a lot more education. The average tours with somebody who's brand new to your community, I'll even take it that far, could be anywhere from 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 actual tours. Touches, I go back to what Rob said, 30 or more, I think, is very natural. And if anything, with new technologies and making it harder to get a hold of people by the telephone or getting them to call back, I think we're actually seeing those touches grow. So that's my answer. Rob, anything else to add to that, or anything anyone else wants to add?
One more thing, and thank you, Ryan, because
Sure.
I forgot the part of the question about for a new community. So thank you for bringing it back to that. What I will say, Matt and everyone, is that I think Ryan's and my answers both are revolving really largely around the independent living community. Loving Company has not worked that much on the active adult side. I would suspect that the timeframes and touches would be significantly lower on the active adult side than they would be for independent living. The entrance fee type of community.
Well, and Rob, just to build on that, Matt, I think that depending on the community, if it's more of a destination type community, that's that they can sometimes be faster turnaround. If there's a particular coastal community for active adult or something like that, there sometimes those those decisions either fall into the bucket of longer consideration or faster consideration. There's two segments of potential residents there. But Ryan, one thing you mentioned earlier, and I've heard you say this before, I think it's important, is that with new communities or existing communities, don't rule out your leads too early. Don't loss lead, because they can come back years later even. And and be interested in the community. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything about that, but I've seen that happen a couple times as well.
No, I mean, I don't want to belabor it too much, Joe, but you're 100% correct. I mean, what salespeople specifically need to remember at the end of the day is they're not the sales people's leads. It's that community's leads. The community is the purchaser of those leads. So you really do want to make sure you're turning over every rock before you're going to lost lead somebody, because it's amazing how many times I've heard, even while you're making those phone calls. And I know as a salesperson, it's tough, especially on a rough day, a rainy day, when you're making, 40, 50, 60 calls and you're constantly getting no's and I'm not ready yet. I've had multiple people come back to me and come back to members of my sales team that say, you know what, Ryan, the reason I want to come look at you, and I know it's been 3 years and I appreciate your persistence. I'm sure you got frustrated with me. I've had people say that, is because you're the one person who didn't give up on me. Everybody else I stopped hearing from, but you were annoyingly persistent. And I always like that. I think it's good to be annoyingly, but professional and persistent.
All right, thanks. And
Yep.
last but not least, unless somebody comes up with a late entry as a question, we don't have a question. We have really sort of a suggestion and an idea that's shared by Lynn Tenbrink of Lakeview Village outside Kansas City. And Lynn's another longtime friend of Love and Company. Hi, I hope you're still out there. Thank you for offering this. But she's going back to the whole idea of promoting one-bedroom residences and offering the idea, what about targeting prospects who have more than one home, that may benefit from the life plan community lifestyle, and we go back to healthcare benefits, that safety net, but they may have multiple homes. So maybe they don't need to have the largest residence in a community. Maybe they could do with something smaller. This actually reminds me of something that has been done in the field for a long time. Regulations might vary state to state, but way back in the late 1990s, Westminster Canterbury Lynchburg in Lynchburg, Virginia, they had a whole bunch of studios. It was their Azalea. And they had what they called their Azalea plan. And somebody in the community could pay an entrance fee and pay a monthly fee, discounted a little bit because they didn't move in. And so they didn't need all the meal services, but they were contractually a resident of the community. It was life care. They had a life care contract, but they only paid the cost of the studio. But the studio was on the books as full and paid for, and the person didn't move in. So it's a little bit of a similar type of thing. And they were able to keep their studio sold, and somehow, I don't know the answer to this, but somehow I believe today, Westminster Canterbury and Lynchburg has more people under Azalea plan contracts than they have Azalea residences. So something they would have worked that out, the state of Virginia to make that happen, but it is an idea that we've brought to other communities. So thank you again, Lynn, for bringing it back to the top. Some of these harder to sell residences, maybe you market to some of the more affluent prospects as their long-term care insurance policy to move in, to always know that they're part of the community, but they don't physically move in, or they set it up as a guest room or a place that they may stay occasionally. So it's a great idea, and thank you, Lynn, again for bringing that up. With that, our questions are done. And just again, I'd like to thank everybody who joined us today for the webinar. I hope you got something helpful out of it. And I would like to thank all our panelists one more time for all the time that they've put into gathering their thoughts and experiences to share with you today. So take care, everybody. Stay tuned. In early December, we're going to have our annual a look ahead at the coming year with some guest speakers that I think you'll find pretty compelling to come hear their thoughts on what our field is facing and really the opportunities that we have in the coming year and years. So hope to see you in early December. Take care, everybody.